This episode of SESSLER'S Something is brought to you by Dystopic Futures. Because what fun is clean air and functioning government? Hello there, everyone. I'm back from Vegas. CES. I'm not sick. Or so I think. I have consumption. Something very exciting has happened this week. I put up my first review that I produced. I also reviewed the game, but I also helped put together the 7.5, maybe 8-minute extravaganza that is my DMC Devil May Cry review. If you haven't seen it, go see it. This entire video will probably be more interesting to you after you've seen the review. But if you want to stay around, because we're talking about reviews and what it's going to be like here at Rev 3 Games with our reviews. So you probably noticed that something has changed. Originally at Rev 3 Games, there was a buy it, rent it, game of the year, throw it in a furnace and burn it for all eternity type scoring system. And now we've reverted to numerical. Now the reason for this shift is that it is a very philosophical thing for me. I know that it's important to use reviews to make a buying decision, but if the review is focused on evaluating a game as a product, like a washing machine, or a car, where its sheer functionality is the only source of value or interest, we're really reducing what a game is about. I come from the sensibility that games are art. They're not just something you buy. It's not a meal. It's not a buffet. It's something that if it's only 3 hours long, it could be incredible. And if it is 100 hours long, it could be eternally boring, and that we can't just see what bang for the buck you're supposed to be getting out of the game. We need something a little bit more nuanced and a little bit more open-ended. Now, why did we go to 1 to 5? Well, it was kind of a 1 to 5 scale to begin with. We now just put numbers where there were words. In addition, I'm very used to the 1 to 5 scale. You may remember it from those days when I hosted a television show. Also, I like 1 to 5 because it's kind of clean and it's very decisive. As opposed to, say, a 10-point scale or a half-point scale, I don't really understand what those nuances are. What's a 6.5 to a 7? It's never really made sense, and it just seems to allow for a sort of a grouping in terms of how you value a game. I like something that's a little bit more strong, and you definitely get that out of a 1 to 5 scale. Now, I'm not going to go through what each number means because it's kind of a moving target. As games are changing, so do what the meaning of these numbers are. But I want to just kind of advise you of a couple of things. One's, we used to give these out a lot more frequently, but games just tend to be a little bit more better made. They will be infrequent. It really does imply that there's something so fundamentally broken or messed up with a game, you can't do anything about it. 5s, on the other hand, do not mean perfection. We plan to hand these out very, very infrequently, but do not think that it somehow means that there's no flaw in the game. What it does mean is that this game is doing something very special and very unique, and more so than most of the other games that are out there. That does not mean that every single mechanical aspect of it is somehow fine-tuned to absolute perfection. I have never seen that game. This is a game where the majority of the memorable moments really make it transcendental, for lack of a better word. 4s, very, very good game, but they just don't have that same soul or that heart or whatever it is. So I just want you guys to think that as we go forward and we start doing our reviews here. Now, what I'm very focused on in terms of what reviews are going to be about is conveying what the experience is like. There used to be a sentiment that how we evaluated games, once again, very product-based, was to deconstruct its various parts, its graphics, its sound, how well the controls worked and all that, and that somehow, once you broke it down and evaluated that, it kind of led you into how good the game was. That doesn't make as much sense if you really think about it, because when you're playing a game, you're experiencing all of those things at the same time. It's kind of this moment of gestalt, for lack of a better word. And it's a very personal experience. The way that we are seeing more and more games that don't have a very clear directed path and that offer you ways of playing it, ways for you to figure out your own solutions to puzzles and the other problems they resolve. What I play may not be the exact same thing as what you play. And I'm trying to get more of that first person back into the review, because that's all we can honestly convey. We can't do it in this objective, everyone will have this same experience. And so you're going to see a lot more of the personal coming out in these reviews. It will be a Adam Sessler review, it will be a Max Scoville review, and it will be a Tara Long review. I think it's probably going to open up the conversation a lot more. Hopefully it will not open up the usual bitterness and acrimony that comes when I review a game differently than you had hoped to. I'm saying it's coming from my experience, and I am more than happy for you to have yours. Obviously, it's exciting to get to do this for the first time. It was actually quite thrilling to do something I haven't done for a while, which is to sit with an editor and take pieces of gameplay and try to make it into something. And I gotta say, being able to work outside of the constraints of what television forces you to do, like a 3-minute review, and be able to do it for 7, might be incredibly thrilling. So what I'm saying is, this is fun. Come along for the ride, and let's start that commenting. So last week I invited you guys to start submitting questions. It doesn't have to pertain to what the SESSLER'S something was about, and I would be answering them. So this is my first answer, and it comes from Brian H. vis-a-vis YouTube. My question is, do you think that people who play games like COD, military first-person shooters, would have a real-world advantage or aptitude if they were in a similar real-world experience? In other words, do you think that their skills at tactics and aiming a weapon in the game would be mirrored in the real world? Thank you very much, Brian H. I'm going to broaden this out a little bit and not make this pertain so specifically to military shooters, because this is an interesting way it flows back into the large violence in video games debate that we're having, that somehow there's this one-to-one correlation. As to what you described, does it make you better at holding and aiming a gun? No, I don't believe that. It's not the same thing. You're not dealing with the same amount of kick. You're not dealing with just the reality of the situation if you are in an armed conflict. I've seen other videos. As someone who's really good in the game doesn't exactly just go off with some AK-47 and is able to ping headshots the same way. The game is a game, real life is real life. Now, in terms of a sense that games might teach some aptitude, now that is something I do believe in, and here's where I'm gonna broaden it out from first-person shooters. Games teach you to read, and read in a visual language, and do it very, very quickly. You can see that in a platformer. You're trying to judge distances. You're trying to understand where the dangers are and how quickly you need to react to that. That, I think, is healthy. It doesn't translate to one skill in particular, but it translates into skills, because that is one thing you need to do as you go through life, is understand what's happening around you. Situational awareness, problem solving. Games do that. Some games do it far better than others, but I think there really is a correlation between certain things that you do in video games and how they transfer into real life. I don't think that we'll be scaling buildings like in Crackdown or Assassin's Creed, but I do think that games give people a little something to be just that much smarter. And one more thing. Some of you guys have been saying, I can't find SESSLER'S something on iTunes. That's because we changed it. It is available on iTunes. Go to iTunes, search under SESSLER'S something, and you're gonna find it right there.